Hello, and welcome back. I am so excited. So, before I sat down in this chair, I was like, what should I talk about? Really, what is relevant in my space? What has been coming into my clients' worlds? What feels the most alive for me, right? That's a really powerful question that I'd like to ask myself because it allows me to tap into desire, right? It allows me to tap into what I really want to do, and it really changes the way that I create my content. And so that's what I asked myself, what feels the most alive for me today? And at first, I had a few little things, but really what felt the most gorgeous, the most delicious in my body is talking about investing in yourself, investing in your business, investing in all the goodness of life. And this was actually something that I had a pretty in-depth conversation with one of my private clients, a dear friend of mine at this point. And I want to talk about investing in a different way. So, not really being in the conversation of investing. It's really the energetics of investing, right? It's not necessarily the amount of money that I'm going to be really speaking about, but it's like the intention behind investing. And so, as I have built my business, as I built my confidence up, I've built my energetic body up. Investing has completely changed the game. I feel like it allowed me to quantum leap into different dimensions, different realities, and it's something that I highly recommend for all of my clients, no matter if you are always in my free masterclasses, my one-off programs, my bigger programs, private coaching, my masterminds. It doesn't matter, right? Because when we understand the energetics of investing, everything starts to change. And so for me, what I tap into and what I have embodied in my business and my life is that investing is simply an act of self-love. And that is it. It's so simple, but it completely changes the way that we operate, the way that we see investing. It really allows us to tap into a more feminine viewpoint of investing, because a lot of the times investing can feel scary or crunchy in energy, or it makes us feel as if man, a lot of fears will come up, right? It's a very activating situation a lot of the time, especially when we are investing on our edge, right? As we start to come into something new and we want something more, and we're investing at our limit, right? We're just on the cliff's edge, and we're okay, I see where I want to go. I want to get there, and this feels big, right? I love investing that way, and I have always invested that way, and I will continue to do so regardless of where I'm at in my business, because one of my mentors, Amanda Francis, says, our desires are just proportionate, to us, right? We will grow as our desires grow. And there's a really deep power in knowing that it's safe to want more. And so being able to see that investing is simply loving yourself in a new way, in a bigger way, it's really I will always say, it's are you betting on yourself, right? I bet on myself, I bet on my business, I bet on my energy, my capabilities all day, every day, even when it doesn't make sense, And my question is simply when I spend money on my business and myself, which at this point are very synonymous in investing, it's because I need to be my truest self. I need to feel fucking delicious in my body, right? So when I go get nutritional IVs, that is me investing in my business, because if I want to show up and have a YouTube channel, and I want to show up and have this podcast, and I have my private coaching booked out, and I'm running these programs, I got to be on it, right? I need to be taking care of myself to a different degree than I was last year when I wasn't creating this much of an impact. And so again, like simply taking care of myself, if that is the nutritional IVs, if that's like a yoga class, if that is, these are like the smaller investments, right? But they have the bigger magnitude because they're taking care of my physical body. They're taking care of my vessel. And man, like being able to say, like, I just love myself so much, right? Like, I'm going to gift this to myself. I'm going to gift myself health and vitality so that I can show up in a bigger way, so I can make sure that I'm taking care of myself, so therefore I can take care of others, right? If I want to be the person that I want to be, then I have to allow myself to be that. I had to nourish myself, right? And I honestly see this all as investment, right? Like, I'm trying to think of some of the things that I've been doing, like even going to, like the grocery store and buying the food that fills my body up, and like the organic, and choosing the more expensive item. Investment is making sure that I can show up from a really aligned place, right? I'm not coming in from a depleted standpoint. I'm not doing things because I have to, right? Like right now, as I'm recording this, it's like I want to do it. Like I'm really excited to do this. It's an inspired situation, which is all of my content, which I'm sure that you can feel, right? But I wouldn't be able to show up in this capacity, which is ever evolving, of course, and always, if I wasn't taking care of myself. Investing is simply loving yourself. Like take a long, nice deep breath and feel into that. It's like, how can I invest into my future self today, right? Like how can I invest in who I really am, who I am desiring to become? And at the same time, how can I invest in me now, in the most present moment, right? Like how can I do all of these things at the same time? What does my body need? And this isn't even talking about the bigger investments in business, right? Like hiring the private coach, if that's what it is, or joining a program or a mastermind where you get to collaborate with powerful women as well, right? It's like whatever your soul is calling you to do, the question is it a deeper form of self-love, right? Like even if it's scary, even if you're like leaning into something that feels big, it's like, is it undeniable that it is propelling you forward on your path? And so this reminds me of a story when, most of you guys will know me coming in from this podcast and my Instagram and all of these portals in which you can tap into my energy as a wealth coach, right? But years ago, that was not true. I was broke as fuck. Like, I was broke and consistently broke for a long time, right? Basically, from one of my biggest trips to Peru, where I spent a lot of my savings to not only pay for me, but also to pay for my best friend. From that moment when I kind of splurged in my savings and I had $1,500 to my name. For whatever reason, there was an energetic currency that stabilized, and I only had at most $1,500 in my bank account for literally years. I'm probably saying 6 years, 5 or 6 years. That $1,500 was the top of my ability to hold money in my bank account, right? And I was like, I am made to create impact that impacts millions, right? So millions of dollars is not the same as $1,500. I remember saying that to my mom in her living room. I was like, I need to get my shit together because that is not the same. The frequency of 1,500 and the frequency of 1 million that's not the same thing, right? And so I had a moment, this moment of I need to change something because there must be beliefs, there must be energy riding out subconsciously in my body that is creating this experience for me. And so I was broke, and I was at this time a single mom living in an apartment and, running my own business, taking my clients just as a energy coach or energy healer and not charging enough in any way. And I was like, I'm going to do something different this time. I am going to, the minute that I have the moment that I have enough money to invest in this money course from a coach that was really inspiring to me at the time, that was like completely at the level that I needed, I'm going to buy it. And I'm going to buy it on the lowest payment plan because I don't have any money, which is $397 for 6 months. So I need $400. And the minute that I have $400, I'm going to do the dang thing and I'm going to buy it because I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to invest in the future that I want. I completely understand whatever I'm doing right now is not a vibrational match to what I desire, which at that time was $1 million business, right? I'm like, clearly there is something wrong. Not wrong with me, but like an incongruency within my energy for that. And so I did. And that day I made a sale that resulted, I think, $444. And I was like, dang it, because my rent is due tomorrow. And this would be really nice to put into my apartment for me and my child. But I was like, I promised myself, I promised that I would take a bold action into like an action step, right? Like I would invest, I would physically do something to change my reality. And even though I was scared, even though I just had this deep soul knowing that I needed something to propel me forward, I needed outside guidance, I needed something deeper in myself. And so I did, right? I bought the course for $397. I had $444, and I did the dang thing. And I was present. I was present in it. Like I was doing the work, right? I was willing, and that's as important as the investment, right? Next day, I made a sale, another sale, that allowed me to pay my rent perfectly, and it was no big deal. The universe has your bag. The universe, you are taken care of. When you bet on yourself, you'll always be taken care of, right? And so it was coming from the space of like, I am going to invest in myself even when it doesn't make sense. Like I am going to do it. Like I'm going to change my life, right? And it was like this biggest form of self-love. It was like, I believe in myself and I believe in my ability to make it work and to figure it out, right? And I can do this. Like I know I can, so I'm going to. And that propelled me forward onto a path that was messy and that allowed me to see the parts of me that weren't allowing money to come forth, and the parts of me that didn't think I was worthy of raising my prices, and the parts of me that were hiding and pretending I was just doing energy healing and not coaching, and like all the parts of me that were playing small, that were a vibrational match to $1,500 in my bank account, and my rent was like $1,300. So it was like, not a good situation. And it took that time, though. It took that moment of investment, the moment of faith, and the moment of, I can do this. Like, I know that I can do this, and I'm willing to do the work. And that's what investing is, right? It's betting on yourself even when it doesn't make sense. Just knowing like deeply, like I know that I can do this, right? And that faith is so powerful. That faith changes everything for you, right? And it's not, the money course is not what it was that changed my life. It was the moment that I decided I was going to believe in myself. And the external factor was the money course, right? And that's great. But the fact is the energy behind the investment, the faith before it makes sense, just going in on your dreams is the powerful medicine of investing, right? What bigger form of self-love can you think about that says, I believe in myself, I have faith in myself, I know deeply in my heart that I can do this? To me, that is self-love. That is like this deep understanding of self. And again, in this example of my life, it didn't make any sense. Like, let me be real. Like, it didn't make sense, right? Like, my story doesn't make any sense. And it really isn't the content within the program, even though that was powerful in itself. The power was in the faith before the decision. The powerful stance that I took that said, yes, I'm going to do this. And it propelled me literally forward into a different reality of a ton of inner work, a ton of waking up at 5 a.m. because my daughter woke up at 6, right? And I needed an hour so I could meditate and do the inner work and do all of the things. It propelled me forward into a completely different timeline, and I've never looked back. And that was the start of creating a multi-six-figure company in 9 months, right? But it took the moment, that moment of investing, that moment of feeling so deep into my soul and just betting on myself, just knowing so deeply that I could do it. It's the power of faith, the power that will change your life. Like, it literally will. And it's scary as fuck. It is so scary. It's so scary to take that leap. But what is scarier, in my opinion, is living a life half lived, right? Like living halfway and knowing that it could have been so much more and that you could have done so much more for yourself and for others. Like, nothing is more scary than thinking about that, living a life of regret, in my opinion. So being able to overcome the fear, being able to overcome the logical brain and, living and creating a life not from the past and in the fear, but of such this belief of abundance and hope and faith completely changes the trajectory of your life and the decisions that you will make to become that, right? Because it is inevitable if you do bet on yourself and you do take a radical change, right? Like a radical action of faith, that everything will change. And it might not be immediate, but it will take you on a new path, each step in front of the other, that will completely change the game for you. And it is a moment. It literally happens in a moment, and it will propel you forward. And I thank my past self every single day for $400, right? And I remember 6 months later, I was making, $25,000 a month. And it came to a point where I got a notification from the coach, like, what was it? It was weird verbiage, but it was just like, payments have ended on the program. And I was like, what? Like, I think that, like, maybe my card got, declined. And so I messaged her, making sure that everything was okay. She's like, oh, yeah, you just completed your payment plan. And I was like, oh, I didn't even remember that I was still paying for this, right? Because 6 months prior, I had no money. But at the time of 6 months after, it was no big deal, right? So things like being open to the possibility of things changing that quickly within 6 months, something that was the biggest edge, the biggest leap was oh, I didn't even realize that was still a thing, right? And so it's coming into the possibility of things changing rapidly and being okay with the change and allowing that to actualize in your body, in your existence. It is so good. Investment is just a deep, deep form of self-love, and knowing that there's going to be things in your body that say no, but when your soul says yes, to be able to take action in a aligned way will completely change your life. Lean into that faith, lean into that inner knowing, and allow it to drastically change your life, your income, your business, your wealth, the legacy that you're creating. It gets to be that good.